Today we are going to be taking a look at a pretty large quest mod for Skyrim called Moon and Star that was released back in 2016. This mod was created by GanXingba. I'll put the name up on the screen in case I butchered the pronunciation, but anyways, this is a mod that was created with the purpose of providing a possible answer to a question that many of us who have played through Morrowind's main questline might have been curious about when playing through Skyrim for the first time. Whatever happened to the Nerevarine? This quest mod adds in a decent bit to the game, including a brand new town with fully voiced NPCs, a few side quests, and a main quest that has multiple endings with some choices that do hold some consequences and will make you think before acting. If you would like to check out the mod for yourself, I'll have a link in the description, but I would like to note that the last time that this mod was updated was back in 2016. My version of Skyrim isn't the most up-to-date, but I do have Skyrim Anniversary Edition and was able to run it with just a few bugs, but I figured that I would mention it just in case. But anyways, with all of that said, let's check out Moon and Star. Starting this grand adventure is actually pretty simple. You can either just wait and eventually receive the letter from the courier if he doesn't get mugged in the back alleys of Solitude, or you can go directly to the letter's author by visiting the Sleeping Giant's Inn, which can be found in Riverwood. There's actually a bit of extra dialogue that is added just in case the letter, for whatever reason, never reaches you, which I thought was a pretty cool immersive fix, for just in case if you run into any bugs delaying or preventing the letter from ever being delivered to you. But regardless of how you go about actually starting the quest, you will eventually find yourself in Riverwood talking to a person by the name of Little Hlaalu, a Dunmer sent by the great House Hlaalu to track down a famous criminal spotted in Skyrim. Apparently the criminal is just too powerful for Mandan to fight alone, so he needs the help of a powerful hero such as the Dragonborn to do all of his dirty work while he can sit around in the comforts of an inn and stuff his face with more bread. In return for tracking down the famous criminal and putting an end to him, you will receive a grand total of 1,000 septims. 2,000 if you actually choose the right dialogue options. This is your actual reward, by the way, for completing this quest mod. Only 1,000 gold for all of it if you actually do what Mandan says, but lucky for us, the mod does have multiple endings, so there are some other really good rewards that we can get later on depending on our choices. But I'll go over all of that later on in the video. After agreeing to help Mandan, he will give you an enchanted ring known as the Ring of Sanguine Resistance, which is supposed to help protect you in the upcoming fight since the guy that we are after is known to dual wield enchanted blades. Although, spoiler alert, even though that this entire video is technically one big spoiler, the ring doesn't really help you out that much in the actual fight. It does have 40% fire resistance, which is pretty good, and there's also a small secret with the ring that we will find out later on, but honestly, it won't actually help you out that much. The quest mod didn't give a minimum level requirement in the mod's description, but at level 21, I can say that the fight was absolute pain. We will come back to that later on in the video, but for now, we are tasked to track the criminal to a new village called Little Vivec, which has been added to the game after installing the quest mod. The guy that we are tracking isn't on some vacation though, so we won't actually find him just chilling out with the locals, but we will be able to find clues as to where he may have went. If you've ever played Morrowind or maybe even ESO, then you will likely know that Vivec was the name of a city that was built on 9 artificial islands where a living god named Vivec actually lived. But during some events that happened between Morrowind and Skyrim's timeline, let's just say that Vvardenfell isn't doing so well. As you may have come to assume, the name Little Vivec is of course based on Vivec City and resides roughly in the center of Lake Ilanalta. We will learn a little bit more about the city later on from some of the Dunmer residents that actually live there, but first we must go on an extremely lengthy, maybe like 20 minutes or so, adventure full of man-eating wolves, hijacking a boat to get across the dangerous steep waters, drive-by skeleton sniping, and maybe even the most dangerous threat of all of Skyrim, the horse-eating carriages. Once we reach Little Vivec, it becomes pretty clear that the village is just a recreation of Vivec City, if the population of Vivec was 6 people and a dog. Just like the original city, Little Vivec is a collection of man-made islands with bridges that connect to each of the plots of land. You can enter the city by going around to the other side of the lake and just crossing the bridge, but I decided to just hijack another boat because I'm the hero doing hero things, which means that stealing someone's boat is completely okay, right? The village didn't really have much, just a hut, 2 houses, and a store. The store seemed like the most obvious place to search for clues, so I decided to go there first. And once we're inside the shop, we can talk to the Dunmer shop owner named Celise, who is actually pretty friendly to us, which makes learning about this newly formed village pretty easy, unless the question that you ask her is why is the village called Little Vivec, in which she gets kind of annoyed and tells you to ask Belvedere. Apparently, Belvedere acts like the boss around here, but according to Celise, no one really seems to like him or really even take him seriously. Asking Celise who else lives in the village gives us a good idea about how big the village is. In its current state, the population consists of Celise, the store owner, of course, Albert, who is, I guess, Celise's adopted son, a dog named Meat, which I'm a little bit afraid to ask why his name is Meat, the twins Taran and Torin, who do most of the labor jobs around the village, Balran, who acts as the hunter and protector of the village, Belvedere, who struts around the village acting like a jarl, and finally Belvedere's wife, Valina, who seems to not only think that Belvedere is an idiot, but also has seemed to take a liking to the twins. A lot of gossip floating around in a small village, apparently. Trying to get back on topic about the person that we're actually searching for, I asked Celise if she had any visitors as of late, to which she says that she's unable to help us as she has a strict policy regarding her customers' privacy. A little bit suspicious, I guess, but I mean, I could respect it. I decided to try my luck elsewhere by asking some of the other locals, but before leaving, I did notice that I could ask her about restocking supplies at the shop. The quest mod adds in 4 side quests to the village, but if I'm being honest, they aren't really that in-depth or anything. Most are just fetch quests, and they don't really reward you with much other than gold, except for one quest that I will get into in a little bit. Leaving the shop and heading directly across the bridge will take us to the DeRosa twins' house, which we will see both of the twins, or well, one of them working outside chopping firewood next to the house as the other twin just kind of sits there not really doing much. And funny enough, talking to Taran, aka the twin that's just kind of sitting down, will confirm that he isn't just taking a break or anything. Nope, he's just lazy, and he's actually very proud to admit it. The only thing that he really even talks to you about is that if you ever forget which twin is which, just remember that he is the more handsome one, even though they are completely identical. The other twin who can be found chopping wood is named Torin. So not only are they identical twins, but they have identical names as well to make it just that much easier to tell them apart, I guess. So talking to this twin and not this twin will help progress the search a little bit, as one of the dialogue options is to ask if anyone has passed through the village as of recent, to which he responds saying that Celise's shop is always obviously getting good traffic because it is a shop. But if we are looking for somebody more specific, then we should talk to Balran, who apparently memorizes every face that comes through the village. And to be honest, I'm a little bit jealous about that because I can't even remember what I was doing an hour ago. Over on the other side of the village, we can find Balran chilling next to a campfire in a small hunting shack. Upon meeting him, it's immediately made obvious that this guy is a lot more serious than anyone else in the village and actually comes off as the actual leader of the village rather than Belvedere, which we'll meet Belvedere in a little bit and you'll kind of get an idea as to why I say this. But anyways, for now, since Balran seems to be the best person for information, I decided to use my expert level socializing skills to earn the trust of the village's protector before asking him about the random guy that I'm hunting down to possibly slaughter. So I decided to ask him why the village is called Little Vivec.
Because we are a village of Dunmer on the water, and some found it clever to name it after another village of Dunmer on the water.
Do you find it clever?
I do not.
Alright then, it looks like Celise was right about nobody really taking Belvedere seriously. Is this a Dunmer village?
It is a village founded by Dunmer refugees. Yes, we tired of our treatment in Windhelm and moved south.
Can't really blame them for wanting to set up their own village away from the elf haters. But why build a settlement on the lake?
The climate is more hospitable. The lake and forest provide plentiful resources, and Riverwood lies nearby. It is an ideal location.
I mean, that sounds like a pretty solid reason. But now to the more important matters. I still need to track down a supposed criminal that passed through here. So I asked him if any visitors have passed through the village as of late, to which he responds with,
a curious question. More curious from a stranger.
It turns out that this is going to be a little bit trickier than I expected. Balran doesn't really seem like the type to be easily convinced with money, so I asked him if he needed help with anything, to which him noticing that I am indeed a godlike warrior with immense power, he mentions that a group of bandits have been plaguing the woods nearby that he has been struggling to get rid of. And since he can't leave to track down the bandits while the village is, unprotected, he asks that we track them down for him and bring back the bandit leader's orcish helmet as proof that they have been dealt with. So after accepting the offer, I traveled up to Moss Creek Camp to deal with the bandits. This is where things took an interesting turn. Upon arriving at the village and doing a little bit of investigation, it didn't really seem like there was any bandits at all, or at least any of them that were still alive. The camp was littered with dozens of corpses, as if all hell had broken loose, and we can even see that some of the bodies are charred up, and one was even frozen in a block of ice next to one of the tents. There wasn't really much for us to do, so after looting the camp and grabbing the bandit leader's helmet, I made my way back to Little Vivec. After delivering the news along with the helmet to Balran, he verifies that it is indeed indeed the bandit leader's helmet by a dent that he left in it when he himself was fighting with the bandits. And as for the bandits already being dead, it seems like he already kind of knows who might have done this. And since I did try to help the village with the bandits, we did earn Balran's respect, so he does end up telling us what we wanted to know. It was already made apparent that the criminal that we were tracking must have been from Morrowind, considering the information that Mandan gave us back at the beginning of the quest. But honestly, from the sounds of it, it doesn't really sound like this so-called criminal is really a bad guy, or at least from the perspective of Balran. So it would seem that the plot has thickened. We are then told that the person that we are looking for was searching for a Dwemer ruin named Khagrenar to the far east of the Morrowind border, which is where we will begin our search for them. But before we start heading there, I want to check out more of the town. I was a little bit curious about Belvedere, but he doesn't always seem to be walking around his house, so it was kind of difficult to try and find him, especially considering that his house is for some reason locked and I didn't want to break into it. However, if you do wait, then eventually you'll actually be able to catch him wandering around the town. When talking to him, it's pretty easy to see why the locals aren't really a big fan of him. Despite being an unliked individual, Belvedere is actually a pretty good source of information if you're curious to learn more about the village. Asking him about Little Vivec, we can learn that the village consists of floating structures called cantons, connected by bridges, and is called Little Vivec in honor of Vivec City. The city was created as a means to flee from the racism when living under the rule of Ulfric Stormcloak, and the location was decided upon when they came upon a large lake sitting below a large mountain, which reminded them of their ancestors' home back in Vardenfell before, you know, the disaster of Red Mountain. I know that Belvedere is disliked by the locals, but if I'm being honest, I kind of liked him. He's arrogant for sure, but I found him to just be an interesting character all around. I mean, sure, to him, he is very serious about the things that he preached, but to me, he just kind of came off as an actor playing an overly dramatic role to entertain the passerbys with his rather intense personality, almost as if he's a mascot for Little Vivec. He really did try to play the leader role though, and he asked me to deliver some proclamations to the locals to make sure that they're contributing to the village, to of course resulted in the villagers just saying
No.
His wife Valina is completely different in comparison. There's not really much of note to her outside of the fact that she thinks that her husband's an idiot and she might also be cheating on him for Torin. But other than that, yeah, not much else to talk about her. There was one last person who lives in the village that we learned about from Celise earlier on, who goes by the name of Albert. Albert is the only non-Dunmer living in the village, as well as the only child here. Apparently, Albert's parents went away to join the Stormcloaks, but haven't come back. And in search of his parents, he found Celise, who now looks after him as if he is her own child. Albert also has a dog called Meat, and when you talk to them, they seem to be in the middle of a game called Apocalypse, which you can actually join in on. The game itself is pretty simple. I mean, it just consists of finding 3 little stuffed dogs, which the first one you can actually find pretty easy sitting on a wooden post on the docks. But as for the other 2, they're a little bit trickier to find. It did take a while for me to find them, but I did manage to find one hiding in the small farm that Valina is tending to, and the third one I found next to the wood pile by the DeRosa twins' house. If you do decide to play the game and you return the 3 stuffed dogs back to Albert, he will actually reward you with the only non-gold coin reward, which is, okay, it actually is a gold coin, but this one's a little bit different because it's a lucky gold coin. But anyways, after getting our prize and turning in the other simple side quest for more gold coins, it's now time to get back to the quest at hand. The so-called criminal that might be a good guy, might be a bad guy that we're hunting down to maybe kill, maybe not. But first, Glitchy Horse. God, I love this game. The adventure to Khagrenar was a pretty intense one with dragons, spiders, and bears. But after a surprisingly not as long adventure as I expected, since I had just kind of fast traveled to the nearby location, I finally found it. Khagrenar, a Dwemer ruin now containing a potential psychopath and that Morrowind guy that we were searching for. Once inside the secret Dwemer ruin with the giant metal door outside, we can see that it's dark, very dark, with some flickering lights to spice up the atmosphere. Also, a small flickering light warning just in case. It is a Dwemer ruin, so a lot of it is what you would expect: creepy atmospheric fog, eerie sounds, and robots. But in the center of this first room, there is something very interesting. Here we can find the heart of Khagrenar, as well as replicas of those 3 spoiler items that were very important in the other Elder Scrolls game involving Dunmer. Replicas of Wraithguard, Sunder, and Keening can be found here for your taking, although they are mostly just there to toss in your house's decorations, as they don't really serve much of a purpose. Pretty cool though. After looting the Dunmer spider's corpses and the Dwemer chests that are scattered around the room, I made my way to the first challenge room that has been set up for this dungeon. On a stone slab in the middle of the room is a book and a box. And to solve the puzzle, you will need to read the translations of the Dwemer text to figure out what needs to go into the box to unlock the door, or else face consequences. I'm not too sure how accurate you actually have to be here though, as I did get one of these riddles wrong and it's still just opened up the door anyway, so yeah. Anyways, the first book's riddle is powerful magic given form, 2 souls it binds with an ancient force. To which, after looking at the items that are around the room, it became obvious that the answer is marriage. So taking the dwarven marriage pendant and putting it in the box, it explodes in a very suspicious green fog and boom, the door is open. And now we can make our way to challenge room number 2. There's 3 of these, by the way, if you haven't guessed that already. Entering the room, we can see that it's the same sort of setup as the first room. This time the riddle is the mightiest weapon in all creation. With it, mortals become gods, for only it can slay time. I didn't quite understand this at first, nor did I notice that the item needed was actually lying around. So I chose to put a dwarven sword in the box, and I ended up regretting my decision as I got swarmed by dwarven spheres. Yeah, that wasn't great, but after killing them and looking a little bit deeper, I realized that the actual answer was a quill and paper, which after having solved this riddle makes a lot more sense now. But anyways, we've solved it, so now on to the dark depths of challenge room 3, where I almost shit myself as I noticed that the Dwemer Centurion was just kind of waiting for me to get the answer wrong. Which I did get the answer wrong. But luckily for me, I managed to take it out without too much struggle as I just, summoned my ghost. Look, the Undying Ghost spell is very powerful. This is when I noticed that the door was open, so I guess you don't actually have to get the riddles correct as long as you're okay with fighting through some enemies. Also, just so that you're aware of what the riddle was, the book said, when cold it destroys, when hot it creates. Let it encase your heart for what lies ahead. I ended up choosing the Dwarven Metal Ingot. Why? I don't really know, but I did, and I don't want to hear anybody down in the comments calling me an idiot for it, okay? And finally, we approached the last challenge room that's not actually a challenge room, but was supposed to be, I think. But here we find 2 Centurions dead, as well as a figure that some of you might actually recognize because you actually played them if you've played Morrowind. Yeah, that's the Nerevarine, the guy that we've been tracking this entire time that House Hlaalu once dead. Yeah, that dude. No wonder they actually needed the help of the almighty dragonborn to take down their famous criminal. When talking to the Nerevarine, this is the dialogue that he will present to us.
At last you arrive. I've been expecting you, dragonborn.
Who are you exactly?
My birth name lost me long ago. To the world, I am known as the Nerevarine.
You were supposed to have disappeared.
I did. You may have read that I left on an expedition to Akavir 200 years ago. That much is true.
So why'd you leave?
A thirst for adventure, and no small amount of hubris. After I defeated Hircine on the Isle of Solstheim, Tamriel felt so empty. I'd beaten a Daedra Lord. Nothing else could challenge me, so I left.
When did you return, and how does nobody know?
I arrived back on Tamriel around 200 years ago, and no one knows because I willed it so. I could not bring myself to face any sort of false heraldry, not after what I'd done.
What does a legendary hero have to be ashamed of?
When a hero is absent, plenty. When the Red Mountain ravaged Morrowind, when Daedra invaded all of Tamriel, where was I? Where was the mighty Nerevarine? Thousands slain, heroes among them, and all because I had to satisfy my ego.
What have you been doing since you returned?
Atoning. I've wandered Tamriel in secret, helping where I can. I may never erase my failures, but perhaps I can overshadow them with new successes.
Let's go back to talking about the present.
Of course.
How do you know who I am?
In a way, I know you better than anyone else, Dragonborn. The weight of destiny lies heavily on your shoulders. I can see it in your stride. I carried it myself once, long ago. At first it was easy. It even felt empowering to be so important to so many. But time passed and I grew tired.
Why are you here?
The answer to that lies in the name of these ruins. Khagrenar, named after the Dwemer's chief tonal architect, Lord Khagrenak.
And you think that he left something here?
Not just something. When Tiber Septim united Tamriel, he did so using one of Khagrenak's weapons, a giant golem called the Numidium. I destroyed a second Numidium 200 years ago, but recently I heard rumors that a third lay dormant in this very ruin. Such a weapon is too dangerous to exist. I've come to destroy it. I could use your help.
Alright, well, you have my aid, Nerevarine.
I'm glad to have it. If it awakens, let me draw its attention. Then give it everything you've got. Follow me.
You can actually choose to oppose the Nerevar and fight him, but I'm gonna come back to that later. For now, I've chosen to side with the Nerevar, which means that we have to kill this thing. Yeah, that thing, the giant robot. We have to fight that. Great. Doing direct damage to this Titan won't do much because his shields are just absolutely insane. It took a while for me to figure out how to actually get his shields down, but essentially what you need to do is attack these cores that the lasers are being emitted from by first flipping the switches that can be found around the room until one of the lasers goes red. Once the laser does go red, the core is no longer protected. There are 3 of these cores, so you have to destroy all 3 of them before the Titan begins actually taking damage, and even then you aren't really safe as this guy can easily one-shot you. It took a few times, but after an intense battle of wits and pure brutal strength, I managed to destroy the Dwemer Titan's defenses and put an end to the chaos. There wasn't really anything of note to loot from the Titan other than a Grand Soul Gem and the key to actually leave this place, so that was a little bit disappointing. I was kind of expecting a lot of loot from a big guy, you know? However, once we talk to the Nerevar once more, we will actually be given our real reward. The Nerevarine congratulates us on a victory and mentions that the rumors about there being a Numidium were false, and that the Titan was just a giant guardian designed to protect this place. Although the reason behind why Lord Cagnarak wished to protect this specific Dwemer ruin still remains unknown. After being told about this, we are offered our reward for siding with the Nerevar and helping him vanquish the golem. We are allowed to choose 1 out of 3 artifact weapons in the form of either a bow, a greatsword, or a one-handed mace. The bow is the Bow of Shadows, which will grant you invisibility whenever you toggle sneak, and also gives you a 10% bonus to your movement speed. Extremely useful for stealth type builds, since you can just kind of sneak around with invisibility, stealth kill an enemy, and then retoggle your sneak to become invisible again. A little bit overpowered. If you choose the greatsword, you will receive Chrysamere, which will grant you a bonus to your health and resistances to fire and magic. It's actually a pretty solid choice for any warrior type builds. It also has a very cool blue trail thing that follows you whenever you swing the sword, which is pretty cool. The last of the 3 rewards is the Mace of Avar Stonesinger, which deals 30 ice damage to health and stamina. This one is probably my least favorite of the 3, and I ended up just going with the Bow of Shadows because it just seemed like the most useful one for me, even though I don't really play stealth archer builds. After choosing a reward, we can leave through a lift to the surface as long as you remember to grab the key from the Titan's dead body, and once we make our way up, we will be greeted by none other than Hlaalu, the person who sent us on this long quest to track down and kill the Nerevarine. He tracks us down and seems very eager for us to give him that ring that he gave us back in Riverwood. I'm not sure if the ring was supposed to capture the Nerevar's soul or simply be a way of verifying that the Nerevarine is dead, but either way, Mandan gave us the ring to verify the death of the Nerevar, so since it did not glow red, he is disappointed that we betrayed his wishes and becomes hostile with you. Fighting him wasn't that much of a challenge, and if you're a low-level character, this is probably the safest option to go with, as the alternative is very challenging, and also simply just less rewarding. Once you kill him, you can find a dagger called Sithis' Razor, as well as a writ of execution that gave Mandan an official sanctioned license by the Morag Tong to kill the Nerevar. Killing him will also complete the quest, however, there is a few more things that we can do after completing the quest. After the Nerevar gave us a reward, he mentions that we can find him at the Azura Shrine. So traveling there, we can see the Nerevarine just kind of sitting there next to the shrine, and we get access to the following dialogue.
Azura guided me on my quest to defeat Dagoth-Ur. She still offers me guidance and aid from time to time. In turn, I pay her my respects when I can.
What's it like being a hero chosen by the Elder Scrolls?
It can be very empowering at first, to know with certainty that you're important, that your life means something. Go to your head if you let it. But it can also be a great burden. What's more, it makes you a target. Many will try to take advantage of you, or tell you what your destiny is.
How will I know who to trust?
You are the only one who controls your fate, Dragonborn. Those who understand that may be friends. Those who would take that away from you may simply be misguided, or they may be hidden foes. It is hard to say.
Alright, well, what do you think of the Skyrim Civil War?
It is a quandary. The Empire is not what it once was under the Septim Line, and I understand why one would wish to escape its yoke. But Jarl Stormcloak has oppressed my people and hungers for power. I do not trust him with more of it.
I thought that this was pretty cool because it gives you some very interesting insight of being a hero or a chosen one from the perspective of a quote-unquote chosen one. On top of this extra dialogue given to us after completing the quest, we can also go back to Little Vivec for some extra dialogue as well. Talking to Balron once more, we are given the dialogue options to tell him that we found the man that we were looking for, and if he knew who this person was, to which this is what he has to say.
Nerevar, born anew, the light of Azura given flesh, and a hero to my people and the world. Yes, I knew. No Ashlander would not. When I was a boy, my mother would sing me to sleep with songs of the Nerevarine. I am not ashamed to say he was my hero, and to have met him. He told me that someone would be looking for him, someone with a warrior's spirit. I am glad to have sent him the right person.
We can also go and talk to Celise, once again asking did she know who the man was.
No, but the way Bal talked about him, I figured he was important. Whatever your business was with him, I'm glad it ended peacefully. He seemed nice. Tell you what, now that I know the kind of person you are, I'll give you a discount from now on. Just be sure to recommend me to your friends, okay?
So on top of all the rewards that we got, we also got a store discount, so that's pretty cool. This is all of the extra dialogue, as the other locals didn't really have much to say about the Nerevarine, which means that this tale has come to an end. But before wrapping up, let's see what happens if you choose not to help the Nerevar, and instead fulfill Mandan's wish and attack him. After refusing to help the Nerevarine, he will begin to attack you, and holy shit, be prepared for a challenge because he is a lot more difficult than both Mandan and the Dwemer Titan combined. I don't believe that the quest had a recommended level, but I was about level 21 when I initiated the fight, and yeah, I kind of got my ass kicked. It took some well-placed Undying Ghosts in order to bring him down after a very intense battle, as his enchanted swords are no joke. And on top of the dual wielding, he can also cast some very powerful spells at you. Also, if anybody's curious, I definitely did not toggle God mode for this fight, by the way. I'm very tanky and very thick-skinned. Yeah. Anyways, once you kill him after fighting him for like 20 minutes, you'll find a trial key to open up the door with the Titan, which now is an optional fight that you can actually skip by. The key to leave this place, the Moon and Star ring, which only the Nerevarine can equip without the ring instantly killing you, but for some strange reason, wearing the ring doesn't actually kill us. I'm not really sure why. I can't quite remember if there is a lore thing behind that, but we can also get the Hope's Fire and True Flame swords, which are pretty powerful. Also, I didn't record this, but I saw on the Moon and Star fandom page for the ring that killing the Nerevar will cause him to appear in your dream and place a powerful permanent curse on you, which will reduce your health by 50 and speech by 25. It will also change how the villagers in Little Vivec will interact with you. And Celise will apparently stop selling things to you now. So that's worth noting before going through with this assassination. Because of this and the fact that turning in the quest to Mandan only rewards you with about 1,000 to 2,000 gold, depending on what you chose for your dialogue choices at the beginning, going through with this decision, it didn't really feel worth it, and ultimately, I just decided to stick with helping the Nerevar, as it felt much more rewarding in the end, and honestly, the Nerevar didn't really seem like a bad guy.
Good to see you again.
And with all that, our grand adventure to search for the Nerevar has come to a close. To quickly recap, we were hired by a member of House Hlaalu, which I'm surprised even still exists. We explored a brand new city floating in the middle of a lake, and we tracked down the famed god-killing criminal from Morrowind and helped him take out a massive guardian, which at the time was rumored to have possibly been a Numidium, which luckily for us was not, because yeah, that would have been bad. Overall, I would say that this was a very cool mod, and I loved experiencing the idea of what could have happened to the Nerevar, to which the answer seems to have been that the Nerevar is just a traveling adventurer helping out the small guys and chasing down potential world-ending threats. I won't lie, the main quest did feel a bit short, and I feel like there was a ton of potential here for expanding upon this whole idea, but the mod does add in more than just the quest. I mean, you get an entire new city, which, although I do wish that the buildings had more of a Dunmer style, since the whole concept was to honor the fallen city of Vivec, it is still a new village with fully voiced NPCs, and the voice acting quality in this is actually very good. My only main concern about recommending this mod to those looking to build upon their Skyrim mod list is just from the fact that this quest mod sadly hasn't been updated since 2016. And although I didn't personally have many issues with it outside of a few bugs, Bethesda has been pushy on forcing mod-breaking updates to the game over the years, and with new mods constantly releasing that alter Skyrim's world space and adding in new features, it's gonna be kinda hard to tell if you're gonna run into any modding conflicts. But to be fair, this is just the sad truth to all mods, as these are made by just people with a passion to expand upon a game or a series that they love. These modders aren't being paid for their work, so it isn't right to expect them to keep everything up to date, especially if they themselves are no longer using the mods that they created. At least with this mod, it does seem like it is still playable for the most part, but the same cannot be said about others that have actually been lost to time. Anyways, that was Moon and Star. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, then let me know down below what you thought, and if you have any other quest mods that you would like for me to check out for any of the Elder Scrolls or Fallout games, as I love to see what kind of creative things these communities come up with. Also, make sure to give this video a like if you liked it, and subscribe. I'm a huge Elder Scrolls fan, but I also often make videos about other RPGs and horror games as well, some of which I try out over on my Twitch streams. If you want to check out any of my other socials, all of that will be in the description alongside the link to this mod if you decide to download it. And with all that said, that's it for me for tonight. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next video of whatever I decide to make.